I think it was Brother Paul that introduced me. All he had to hear was, this is a young preacher from the pastor in Oklahoma. Brother Dean wrapped his arm around me and said, "Well, Josh, good to meet you. I love you, brother." And I know he really meant it. He loves preachers. And he has an impact on everyone he meets. And Brother Dean, I'm one of those that you've had an impact on. You are a dear, dear brother. And he's the pastor of Cross Point Church in Hattiesburg. And millennials are the most difficult group to reach today. A lot of them are unchurched. But God has gifted Brother Dean with the special ability to reach that particular age group. And he is doing a great work in our community and in that church at reaching a group that society says is antagonistic toward the gospel. And Brother Dean is bridging the gap between that difficultness and Jesus. Amen. And you're going to hear a great blessing. You've already heard a blessing. Did Brother Brad bless you? It is no wonder why Olive Baptist Church is growing. Because God has put a man there with the Holy Spirit and the hand of God on him. And God has put a man in Hattiesburg at Cross Point with the Holy Spirit and the hand of God on him. I love this brother. You give a big honor and welcome Dr. Dean Register.
What a night. I love Josh. Boy, he's been a dear brother to me. He's right. I think we're reaching a lot of millennials because I'm the old geezer. And so they kind of trust me. I've started the No Shave November. Last time I had a beard, I must have been 20. But anyway, my granddaughter said, "Oh, Papa, I really think you need to do that. You'll look real extinguished." She said, "I meant distinguished." I said, "Oh, you got it right the first time, baby." Man, I love Paul Roney. He's been my brother in Christ, my prayer partner, and I'm thankful for his support in this whole ministry. It's so strategic. And Vision Baptist Church, the choir was rocking down there. And Miss Patterson, thank you. God bless you. And look, and Levi and Jake. And Rob grew up in Maggie Valley, North Carolina.
That's right.
I pastored probably about 25, 30 miles from there some years ago. When God was creating a beautiful place, He had Maggie Valley in mind. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Well, and wow, I'm going to say this about Brad. Somebody once criticized Dwight L. Moody and says, "Does Moody think he's got a monopoly on the Holy Spirit?" Somebody says, "No, but the Holy Spirit's got a monopoly on you." So with that in mind, and my wife said, you're the last one to preach?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, I'm the last one to preach." She said, "Well, don't pull a Eutychus." I said, "Yeah, I know. Eutychus fell out. It was so late when Paul was preaching, and Paul had to go revive him, so I'll try not to. I want you to turn with me to the Gospel of Mark, Mark chapter 5. Mark chapter 5, and we're going to begin with verse 21. And it says that when Jesus had passed over again by ship to the other side, much people gathered around him, and he was near to the sea. And behold, there came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. And he besought him greatly, saying, "My little daughter lieth at the point of death. And I beg you, I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she will live." And Jesus went with him. And much people followed him and thronged him. And a certain woman had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things from many physicians. and had spent all that she had, nothing, and was nothing better, but rather grew worse. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it, with some physicians today. And when she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind, touched his garment. For she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that the virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press and said, who touched my clothes? And the disciples said unto him, thou seest this multitude thronging around thee. Sayest thou, who touched me? And he looked around to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell before him and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, daughter, thy faith has made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague. And yet while he spake, there came from the ruler of the synagogue's house certain which had said, thy daughter is dead, why troublest thou the master any further? As soon as Jesus heard that word that was spoken, he saith unto the ruler of the synagogue, be not afraid, only believe. Yeah. And he suffered no man to follow him, save Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. And he cometh to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, seeth the tumult, and them that wept and wailed greatly. And when he was come in, he saith unto them, why make ye this ado and weep? The damsel's not dead, but sleepeth. And they laughed at him to scorn. And when he had put them all out, he taketh the father and the mother of the damsel, and them that were with him, and entered in where the damsel was lying. He took the damsel by the hand and said to her, Talitha cumi, which is being interpreted, damsel, I say unto thee, arise. And straightway the damsel arose and walked, for she was of age of 12 years, and they were astonished with great astonishment. Lord Jesus, how I beg for you to anoint this message as only you can, for your glory, in Jesus' name, amen. I believe that anything Jesus has ever done at any time, he can do now. Amen. I believe that anything Jesus has ever done anywhere, he can do here. Amen. And I believe that anything Jesus has ever done for anyone, he can do for me and you. Amen. I don't know about you, but when I look through this passage, it strikes me that here are two people who were really undone. Yeah. And so I've titled this message, What Do You Do When You Are Undone? You've had those days and I've had those days, and we're like, wow, this has been heavy. I am undone. It was a silly kind of thing a few months ago. I picked up my cell phone and it was just dead. And I said, well, I need to plug it in. I plugged it in, it was still dead. I took it to a friend, I thought, it was pretty sharp, technician. He said, brother, I can't help you, I don't know what's wrong with this thing. Take it to an Apple Tech. I took it to an Apple Tech. He spent about 15 minutes in the back. You ever notice they always go to the back? They don't ever, give you the secrets to it up front. They go to the back. He comes back about 15 to 20 minutes and he says, I'm sorry, you have lost everything. I said, is it up there in the cloud somewhere? He said, no, you just lost it. And I said, brother, are you serious? He said, I'm serious. And I thought, wait, I've lost all the notes I had in there. I've lost all my contacts. I've lost all the telephone numbers. I've lost all the photographs of my family. And I'm thinking, I'm kind of undone here. It's a sad commentary that we have to depend upon such technology today. But I began to think, and I remember going back home saying, man, I've got to get a new phone. I am just undone. Well, there are a lot of times we get undone that are far greater than that, with headaches and heartaches and tragedies. But I think what we have before us in this text are two people that were really, really undone. One was a person of great status socially. His name was Jairus. The other was not a person who was elevated, but a person who was alienated. It was
Yeah.
an unnamed woman,
Right.
and she had had a medical problem for 12 years. And that problem had not been solved. She was undone. Jairus, by contrast, was a man who was a ruler of the synagogue, and he, above all people, had a really serious problem. And so the question is begged, what do we do when we're undone? And I want to say to you unapologetically, the first thing you do is you take your burden to Jesus. Understand? How often it is we're undone, we want to go to somebody else and say, help me. We want to try to get on our cell phone and say, I can find an answer here from WebMD. Why don't we take our problem to Jesus first and foremost? I know it's not easy to ask for help, and I'm that way a lot of times, but I wonder if Jairus struggled with the decision to approach Jesus. And you know why? I'm sure he'd heard all the displeasure about Jesus. He was a synagogue ruler. And in that culture, in that time, they didn't like Jesus.
That's right.
And so he's got this peer pressure mounting up on him, and he found himself facing a situation in which he's undone. He has a daughter that's dying. He knows and has heard about Jesus being able to heal, and so he's caught on the horns of a dilemma. He feels that burden. It's been said that cowards come in two stripes. One lives with personal heartbreak and is afraid to face others. The other lives with others, but he's afraid to face the personal heartbreak. Jairus was neither. He was bold enough. Now, you've got to realize he broke protocol entirely.
That's right.
It wasn't something you're supposed to do. Some years ago, when Leonid Brezhnev, the famous premier of the Soviet Union, was lying in state, many of the dignitaries from the United States went over for his funeral. The communist guard lined around, his casket in display. His wife broke protocol. Now, you won't hear CNN cover stuff like this, what I'm about to tell you, okay? They're not going to cover. She broke protocol. She's standing there. There's the casket. The communist elite are on each side, and she walks down, tears running down her face, and makes the sign of the cross on his chest. You know what? Maybe there was a believer there. She broke protocol. It's time you and I broke protocol and took our burden to Jesus unashamedly. When life unravels and we're undone, we long to know if Jesus cares. And look what I notice in verse 24. After Jairus approaches Jesus and he says, my daughter's dying, what does it say in verse 24? Jesus went with him. 4 words that change everything. I tell you what, I've experienced those moments in which you're like, Lord, I don't know if this is a heavy time. Lord, I don't know how we're going to get through this. And you know, when you hear news about your family hurting, you hear news about friends that are struggling, and then you look at your own life. Maybe it's a job loss. Maybe it's a financial crisis. Maybe it's a health crisis, the big C word, or cancer. And you feel just, I'm undone. Why don't we just keep taking that burden to Jesus?
Amen.
Because he goes with us. He cares. Several years ago, I was in Birmingham where my daughter lives. She and her husband, they're 6. And when she gave birth to the first, and I have 7 grandkids, I said, you know what, I think children need to grow up thinking there's at least one person in their life that believes they're absolutely perfect. And I'm going to qualify for that with my grandchildren. You know? So I love them with all my heart. Well, there's one of them that's a little bit too much like me. And so I was visiting, and it was one of those summer evenings when a huge line of thunderstorms was coming through Birmingham. And I was sleeping upstairs in a guest bedroom. 2 of the boys were down the hall, a little tiny little bedroom. And man, it thundered. There was a clap that just boomed. And lightning would zigzag and light up the room. And then another boom and another boom. The windows would rattle. And suddenly I heard some little feet running down the hall. The door swung open. It was Judson. He was named after the great missionary Adoniram Judson. And Judson, 5 years old, jumps in that bed with me. And he said, Papa, I'm scared. And I was laying on my side, and I reached my arm around him. I said, it's okay, buddy.
Yeah.
It's okay. You go back to sleep.
Yeah.
He said, but Papa, it's dark. I said, I know. Go back to sleep. I could feel his little heartbeat against my arm. And then in just another minute, I thought he might be asleep, but he was not. He said, Papa, is your face turned toward me? I said, it is. He said, then I can go to sleep.
Oh, that's
Well, I'll tell you, when you know Jesus' face is toward you go sleep. And you can take that burden to him, and he will take care of all of it. Here's Jairus, and he's taking it to Jesus. Well, now, there's the woman, and she's been dealing with this problem for 12 years. She's had an issue of blood, uterine bleeding, and she's gone to doctor after doctor. Nobody's helped her. She just feels stigmatized. She feels humiliated. But she heard about Jesus. And Jesus who loved the unloved. Jesus who touched the lepers and made them clean. She heard about Jesus who touched the crippled and made them walk. And the Jesus who could put mud on blind eyes and open them up. And so she wonders to herself, oh, if I could just touch him. You know why? She didn't feel like she was anywhere worthy of it. And guess what? None of us are. And the good news is, he wants us anyway. And so she says, if I could just touch his cloak as he passes by. And she does. And I want you to notice something. In verse 29 it says, straight away or immediately. It is one of the most prominent words in the Gospel of Mark. Read through the Gospel of Mark, you'll see it. And immediately Jesus did this. And immediately that happened. And immediately something else happened. It's a gospel of action. And it says, immediately she stopped bleeding. And she felt the healing. And immediately Jesus knew it also. Let me tell you something. When you touch Jesus, you know it. When you touch Jesus, he knows it. And so something changes. I like what Brother Brad was saying. Something changes. You can't help it. And it's not really that the focus is on us. A lot of times people ask me, Pastor, what do you say about these people that go around and say, well, they've got this gift and that gift. And I know some of them that are on TV and they're like, hey, God wants you rich and God wants you this and God wants you that. And some of them say, hey, I'm rich, I'm prosperous, I'm wonderful, I'm this. What did the Apostle Paul say? I'm wretched. I got a problem. You know what? So this lady is taking her problem to Jesus, and she wants him to make all the difference in her life. Well, guess what? Remember, ever heard of Johnny Erickson Tata? She used to sing for Billy Graham. Wrote some wonderful books. I don't know how she does it, but she paints with a paintbrush in her mouth, and she paints some beautiful things. Well, here's the thing with Johnny. Johnny was a beautiful 15-year-old. Dove into a lake, broke her neck. Went through all kinds of therapy. She was what we call a quadriplegic. She's got a little tiny bit of movement with one of her arms. Legs, no movement. Basically paralyzed from about mid-chest down. So, here's a 15-year-old facing an uncertain future, but determined to let Jesus have all of what's left. And so, being that determined, obviously the Lord's going to use her. And so consequently the Lord does start to use her. More and more and more. But she had a dream. Dare she dream to the Lord, Lord, I want to be married one day. But who wants to change a colostomy bag? Who wants to take care of the tube? Lord, but I would like to be married with you. And so, what does the Lord do? He sends a man along several years later, and Ken Tata was just the man. He adored her. He fell in love with her heart. Now, let me tell you something. When you love the heart of the one you married to, you're going to love everything else. You'll love dirty socks on the floor, and you'll love hair dryers and everything else. You just love it. So, the day of the marriage came, the wedding, and she said, you know, as a young girl, she would dream of how it was to be. And she said she had it all worked out in her mind. And that moment she was at the back of the church, the door swung open. She was in her little wheelchair. Her flowers were in her lap. And just as she was to move that wheelchair down, it caught her wedding gown and it creased it. Kind of, she could hear the tear. And then the roses dropped to her feet. And everyone's standing and looking at her. She said, "Oh, Lord, this is not what I imagined." She said, "But then I saw my groom. And he was standing there looking at me."
I'm with you, brother.
And she said, "When I stared at him, I forgot about me." And when you stare at Jesus, you forget about you.
Yeah.
Because you're not the one at issue. Jesus is.
Yes.
Here's a lady, and I believe she was just staring at Jesus. If I could just touch the cloak. And the Lord did it, she got healed. But here's our point, They both took their burden to Jesus.
Yeah,
Unashamed.
that's right.
Now here's the second thing born out of this. When we're undone, we not only have to take our burden to Jesus unashamedly, we have to trust the interruptions to His time.
Yeah.
We really have to trust a lot of interruptions too. Is that bottle of water, Brother Brad, is that bottle of water right there? I'm going to need it for a minute. Little sinuses and stuff. Thank you, my brother. Amen. You ever notice how sometimes life is just a continual interruption? And it's one thing after another. So, the Lord takes the time with her. Now, if I'm Jairus, I'm like, "Lord, my little girl's dying. Well, you take care of that later. Come on, Lord." But Jesus is always exercising perfect.
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes we don't think He is, but He is.
Yes, brother.
We were going home I grew up in Georgia and had to go back several months ago. And we were on Interstate 10. Let me tell you something. If you pick up Interstate 10 anywhere around Gulfport, it's a long drive to Tallahassee, Florida, and then to go up to Georgia. Yeah. But anyway, we were somewhere around Pensacola. We were getting close. And boy, the traffic started it snarled. It's dark. One of those stormy nights. And I said, "Man, the traffic's just slowed down." And I looked. We were a little bit higher. I could look. Traffic sloped this way, bent this way. And as far as I could see, lights, red light, it backed up. I said, "What in the world?" And my wife said, "Just be patient. Just be patient." I said, "I am, but we've got to get home. Or go back to where home is." And she said, "Just be patient. You don't ever know. Might be a wreck." I said, "You're right. We need to pray for him." And so, we did. We were it was probably a good hour. Now, let me tell you, when you're on the interstate, you could be on 49. And if there's an accident, it's going to take you a while. And so we were backed up probably a good hour. And I was not in a real good mood. And so, when we finally got up to where the problem was, I saw some cars in the median. I saw trees that had been topped all over the place, and then it struck me. If we had been on our timing, we would have been in the middle of a tornado that swept across I-10. God's timing is always perfect. And so we have to let Him deal with the interruptions in our life. It's hard to trust Him with interruptions. We like instant, don't we? You remember we used to put hot dogs in a pot of water and you boil them? And now we put them in the microwave like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. We're people that are geared to this quick response. And so, Jairus is like, "Okay, all right, I'm going to have to give this to you, Lord. It's what it is." I was preaching revival in up North Mississippi, Ripley, Mississippi, several years ago. It was a Tuesday night. I had a great Sunday morning, great Sunday night, Monday night. Tuesday, sometime morning, I woke up and said, "Boy, I don't feel very good." And then I began to throw up. And man, I was just really nauseated. My back was hurting me. My head was hurting me. And I thought, "Lord, you're going to have to intervene here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it." And that afternoon, I called the pastor, told him the situation. And he said, "Well, I'll pray, you pray." And so I met him at church a little early. I walked in his office. He said, "Whoa, you don't look good." And I said, "Well, I don't feel good." And it's just one of those things. And he said, why don't you stay in the back of the church if you feel like you got to go throw up again?" And he said, after our special music, you come up and preach. And I said, okay. And so sure enough, one wave of nausea would hit me, and I'd have to get up and go. And so it was time for me to preach, and I came up, and we opened our Bibles. And I told him, I said, look, I'm struggling. I want you to pray for me. I really don't feel good. And started to preach. I had not preached 2 minutes. And I said, I am so very sorry. Let me apologize. I'm going to ask our instrumentalist to come. I'm going to ask your pastor to come for the invitation. I'm sick. And so I left the pulpit, walked out a door, walked out another door, and blessed a flower bed right outside. Man, one of the deacons came over and said, we're going to get you to the emergency room. They'll get you patched up. So I get there, it's a wonderful ER doctor, and he started doing some analysis and everything. And after about 20 minutes, he says, look, you've got an acute kidney infection. Probably got a little bit of a virus thrown into that, make you throw up. And he said, we'll hook you up with the IV. So they hooked me up, and I'm laying there, and I'm thinking, Lord, I blew it. I blew it for you. And I was just feeling bad, feeling sorry for myself, being sick, And after about an hour, the pastor comes in, and he said, man, you feeling better? I said, yeah, the IV's starting to work. I said, brother, can I apologize? I've never had that happen. He looked at me, grabbed my arm right here and said, don't apologize. The Lord Jesus got into it. 12 people made decisions for him. And then he patted me and said, do you think you can get sick again tomorrow night? What a brother. Interruptions. But God took it, didn't he? Yeah. God handles the interruptions. And you just, sometimes we just got to stand our ground, stay put. You got to remember, every great giant oak was once just a little nut that stood its ground. Yeah. And you just need to stand your ground, right. Trust God's timing, it'll be okay. And here's the last thing. When you're undone, what do? You not only trust God with the interruptions, you watch Him accomplish what you never imagined He could accomplish. So Jairus here is the worst thing possible. She's dead. Y'all don't need to bother Jesus anymore. The assumption was He can't change it anyway. You know how many Christians live with an attitude, Jesus, you can't do anything about it. Lord, you can't do anything about my marriage. It's so bad. Oh, yeah, you can too. Lord, you can't do anything about my family. My family's so dysfunctional. Well, Jesus can give them some good mental health. Lord, you can't do anything about my church. My church has been in the rut for 100 years. Well, Jesus will get them out of the rut and He'll make them happen in their life. But we live with this assumption, well, Lord, that's too big for you. Lord, I'm not going to worry you with that. Yeah, He wants you to. He invites us to. And so Jesus says to Jairus, He gives him one of the most prominent prohibitions in the entire Bible. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Fear not, fear not, fear not, fear not. Somebody asked me, Pastor, do you think we can be totally fearless, with all that life throws at us? I said, I don't know about totally, but let me tell you something. If you place your faith in Jesus and you exercise courage, you might not ever be totally fearless, but you will fear less. You will fear less than ever before. And so here's Jairus, and the Lord says, hey, don't be afraid. And then He gives him one of the more common positive affirmations. Only believe. Only believe. I was listening to Brother Brad, and I think, we have a lot of people in our, even Southern Baptist churches, have an erroneous idea about salvation. They get so works-oriented about it. Right. As if, I'm saved, I walked that aisle, I did it all myself. Walking that aisle didn't save you. Jesus saved you. You might have all kinds of titles and degrees, more degrees than a thermometer. But that doesn't save you. Only Jesus saves. And so consequently, it's about believing. Sometimes I hear people and they say, well, here's the thing. I was like Brother Brad, I love feelings. I love look. when my wife says she loves me, I love that feeling, you know, baby. When my children say, I love you, Dad, my grandchildren love you, Papa. I love that. I love those things. I love the autumn. I love the fall. Haven't we had some glorious sunsets lately?
Yeah.
Woo! God just painted the sunset. I love all of that. You know, let me tell you something. The Bible doesn't say in Ephesians 2:8 and 9, for by grace are you saved through feeling.
No. That's right. That's good, brother.
For by grace are you saved through faith. Now, feelings will come if you'll exercise faith. But faith doesn't necessarily come if you exercise feelings. Get that? So, but I've thought of this. You know what I'd love to do just once, the Lord would let me, and He won't let me. But I just think about it. I'd love to wire a pulpit. And in our church we have seats. And I could say, row number 21, seat number 34. That sister looks like she needs to feel something. And see, I have to wire just wire all under the congregation. And Mr. Better than you'd be sitting back there like this, and I could say, that brother needs to feel something. I'm going to push that button. He'd get a charge. Woo! So I'd like to do that just once. But there are a lot of people said, you know, that's what I got to say about it. No, you didn't get to say about feelings, you got to say about faith. And then there are others that say, you know what, I had a guy say this to me. Pastor, when I get my life cleaned up, I'm going to come to church and I'll get saved. I said, really? You going to clean it up? You know? And I said, let me give you an analogy, brother. I said, let's suppose you get a car wreck. Lord forbid that you would, but suppose you did, and I came up on you. And you all beat up. And I said, look, brother, we got to get the EMTs here, the first responders. We got to get you to the emergency room. I said, wouldn't you be a fool to say, well, if you don't mind, could you take me broken legs and all, and about 30 stitches you need in my body, let me go to the house and get cleaned up first, and then you can take me down to the emergency room. I said, man, you're an idiot. No, you don't do that. You come as you are, and He does the cleaning. And I used to think, well, you know, it's not a feeling, so, you know, praise the Lord, it's not. It's not that we've got to get morally good and then we present ourselves. Jesus would never need to die on the cross because we're good enough anyway. And then there are those that say, well, I need to know everything about the Bible first. I had a man actually tell me that. I said, brother, you married? He said, sure, I'm married. I've been married 33 years. I said, you know everything about marriage? No. I said, okay. You know, you're not ever going to know everything about the Bible, but if you know that Jesus died for you, He rose again the third day, and He's coming back, that's enough. And you place your faith in Him. And so we got to get it right. Well, here it is, only believe. Only believe. And that's one of the most repeated imperatives in the Gospels. So, they arrived at Jairus' house, and Jesus saw this commotion. They actually had paid wailers. I'm not talking about a whale, I didn't say it. Wailers as in wailing, you know, not yeah. They had paid weepers, okay? And so they would weep and wail and everything. And so Jesus says, look, what's this commotion? And they laughed at Him. Boy, who are you? He says, get out. And Jesus takes the mama and the daddy and His disciples. And He goes over there to that little girl that is dead. Lifts her up and says, Talitha, little daughter, get out.
Yeah, brother.
Can you imagine? You know, I have a book in my library. It's called Wish I'd Been There. It's about great historians that take moments in history. I'd like to have been there. Right? To watch those little eyelids start to flutter.
Yeah.
To watch that breath come back into the lungs.
Yes.
To watch those hands go from pale to fleshly and start to move. And a mom and a dad.
Yeah.
And the glorious moment that one. Wow. You know what? Jesus always does the impossible.
Yeah.
He always does it.
Yes.
There's nothing impossible with Him. He always does it all. Now, I'm going to wrap this up for you real quick. When we're undone, what we need to do is trust Jesus with our burdens. We need to trust Him with our interruptions, and then we need to Watch him accomplish the impossible. And our task is, brothers and sisters, let me wrap up with this. Don't bail out on Jesus.
That's right.
Any coaches in here? Anybody ever coach Little League Baseball? I've often said I coach Little League Baseball. The kids are great. The parents not so much. I was pastoring in Gulfport, First Baptist Church. I was coaching my son's 12-year-old team, and you know, I don't know if they do a draft or anything. I didn't know a lot of kids. I drafted one kid. I drafted a kid that didn't have any legs, and this other coach said, "Man, that's a bad draft. The kid doesn't have any legs." I said, "Have you measured his heart?"
Yeah.
You know what kind of heart? By the way, that kid has now competed in the Paralympic Olympics. Yeah. I won't say that guy. Remember him? But anyway, I drafted another kid. He was 5'10", 12-year-old now, 5'10", 175 pounds. Couldn't catch a gnat if it flew in the mouth. And first day of practice, I had our big bag and dumped all the bats and balls out. And you know, they're looking at me and say, "Okay, guys, here's my philosophy. I'm going to coach you, but I'm going to play everybody. Okay, that's just my rule. I'm going to play everybody." And so I said, "But I want you to get a partner, and I want you to loosen up your arms." So they kind of paired up, and I was getting some equipment ready over here. And after about 3 or 4 minutes, I heard a kid start crying. And I looked, and it's William, the 5'10", 175 pounds. And I go up and say, "William, there's something wrong with him. He's as tall as I am." But I said, you okay?" He said, "Yes." He said, "You see my partner?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I held my glove right here. He threw the ball and hit me right here in the neck." I said, "William, if you move that glove over, you catch that ball. That's what I want you to do." "Okay, thanks, coach." And I knew we were going to have a long season. You know, but William was probably the most magnetic kid on our team. As I told you, he couldn't catch a gnat if it flew in his mouth. But he had a bigger problem, and that was his dexterity. His reaction time was very slow. And I'd work with him, and when he would come up to bat, literally, I was giving him some lessons, and like this is the batter's box. When I would wind up throwing a pitch, he'd just get out of the way. And so I went to his parents and said, "Listen, I have a rule. I like to play the kids. This is called developmental baseball. They're not in the majors yet.
That's right.
So we're going to let them play." You know. And she said, "Thank you. We love that, but we need to tell you, he has never played any kind of organized sport. Wow. He loves baseball, and we're just thrilled. You don't need to. You don't worry about if he ever gets up to bat." I said, "Well, I want to do that." She said, "We're serious. We're worried he might get hurt." I said, "I understand. So William became our best cheerleader. Now, we were getting toward the last game of the season. We were settled in second place. There was no way we were going to beat the #1 team because they were undefeated. We had about 3 losses. And so we were up against them, and I kind of fired the boys up. I said, "Last game of the season, look, we might lose this game, but let's let them know they've been in a fight with it, okay? Let's play hard." And so anyway, they had a pitcher that went on to play Division I baseball, this pitcher, and he had 2 very good pitches for a Little League. Now, when you can throw the ball 70 miles an hour from Little League distance, that's equated to about a 94-mile-an-hour fastball in major leagues. And so this kid could throw a fastball like that, but he also had a pretty tricky pitch. And that's kind of an unarmed sidearm pitch, and he would throw like that. Now, being a right-handed batter facing a right-handed pitcher that's a sidearmer, I hated it. Because you think they're going to take your side out. I mean, they're you know, from that position, they're slinging at you. And so anyway, this kid's very good. I knew it, and I was preparing our team. And anyway, the game was tied. The game was tied 2-2. We got the last bat. So first guy gets up, he strikes out. And I think, well, it was a good season. And the next guy gets up, and he dribbles the ball down near the third base line, stays fair, he gets on first base. Next guy gets up, he strikes out. Next guy gets up, And he walks. Got me in on first and second. We get into the heart of our lineup. The next kid hits a sharp ball to the shortstop, takes a bad hop, hits him in the chest, rolls around. Guy at second runs to third. Guy that hit it runs to first. We've got bases loaded. First base, second base, third base. Bases loaded. Williams in the dugout. He's just yelling, "Come on, team. We're going to slaughter them." Not about slaughter here. Give it up. You know. But anyway, he's a great cheerleader, you know. And he's just cheering them on. And it struck me. I'm in the third base box. Now look down the dugout. I'm like, William really had to get up the bat. I know his mom said it was just perfectly fine with her. I said, "Hey, William, get a helmet and get a bat." And he says, "Who, me, coach?" I said, "Yeah, you." William's head was so big, our helmets really didn't fit him. And I remember seeing one of the boys putting that helmet on, and the boy jumping up trying to bet it. His ears started to stick out. I said, "No, get his ears inside that helmet now." And so he comes up to me and he says, "Coach, what I do?" I said, "Look, William," I put my hands on his shoulders. I said, "I don't care if you strike out. You know what I want you to do? Just once for me. I want you to get up there and swing that bat, okay? Don't back out. Swing that bat." So William gets up there. He had an awkward stance. It didn't look good. But he kind of pigeon-toed, and the bat was up here like this. And so, okay, Lord, you're in charge. And so this pitcher comes up. The moment he kicks his leg, William's bailing out. Umpire says, "Strike one." I said, "Come on, William. Swing the bat. I don't care if you strike out. I want you to swing the bat." "Okay, coach." So he gets back up there again. Sure enough, this guy goes to his windup, starts a kick, and before he can just about deliver the pitch, he's about out. "Strike two." I said, "Time out." I go over there and said, "Look, I want you to look in the stands. Who do you see?" "Well, there's my mama, my daddy, Uncle Bob, and Aunt Sue, and my little brother." I said, "That's right. What do you think he's in here to watch you do?" "Swing the bat." "Yeah, I want you to swing that bat, buddy." I had coaches say, I've never seen a metamorphosis like that. It's just like him. William walks back up. He's doing this. He walks back up to the plate. He starts digging a spot out. Where's that been all year? He'd get a little swagger about him. You know, a little swagger. And he's doing this. And then he points the bat at the pitcher and says, "William, don't do that. Don't do that." He says, "Okay, coach." And then you know, he gets a little wiggle. I think, wow, look at this. He gets his weight back here, and he's ready. I thought, I've never seen this. Lord, this is great. You know, if he swings and misses, it's just great. Well, this pitcher starts into his motion, you know, runners first, second, third. Game tied 2-2. We got 2 outs. And I watch the pitcher, and his hand drops. And I immediately said, "Oh, wow. If he comes with that submarine sidearm pitch, William could get hurt." And sure enough, he does this and he drops it, and he's coming with that sidearm pitch. And I'm in the third base box, and it was just kind of like the time it was released, and my shout at him was, "William, duck!" Because where he released that ball, I said, he's got to come in there high. And so William's not moving though. He's not moving. He's not bending down. And so that ball's sailing at him, and I'm thinking, I do not want to do a funeral, Lord. And that ball's coming right in his head. And just at the last minute, he lifts his shoulder. Ball hits him right there. Umpire says, "Take your base. We won the game." After the game was over with, you know how they turn the lights out in the Little League field, and I'd gotten the balls and the bats, and I saw William. He had his little brother's hand, he had his mama's hand, his mama had his dad's hand. They're walking away, the sun was setting, and William stopped just about for me to call. He turned around and said, "Hey, coach, I didn't bail out when you did." I said, "No, William, you did." Yeah. I had one of those aha moments, as if the Lord says, "I want you to listen to this." As if the Lord was saying to me, Dean, don't ever bail out.
Bail out. Yeah.
I don't care how high and tight the pitches are.
Yeah.
I don't care what kind of pitch Satan throws at you. Don't bail out. Stay in there. Stay in there. That's the charge I want to leave with you.
Yeah.
Don't bail out, brothers. No matter how hard life gets, no matter how undone you feel, don't bail out.
Right.
Stay with you. God's got a plan,
Yes.
and He'll fill your cup beyond anything you've ever imagined. What a night we've had. What a day. I'm going to lead us in prayer, and then Brother Josh is going to come up for just a time of invitation. Maybe you're at that point where you realize, I may have placed my faith in me more than I have in Jesus, and I need to get it right. The Lord will lead you. The sound will sing. Brother Josh is going to be available. He'll make the appeal. Let's stand together right now. Would you bow with me in prayer? Stand. Lord Jesus, anything you've ever done, you can do right here. Anything you've ever done for anybody, you can do for me and anybody else. So Lord, we pray. We pray that you would use us as your tools.
Yeah.
Lord, forgive us.
Yeah.
For 1,000 times we bailed out on you. We embarrassed you. Forgive us, Lord, when we failed to understand the plan you had for us. We ran ahead of you. We didn't trust you for the interruptions. Lord, forgive us for all those times that we just didn't take our burden to you. We were mad or we were sad. We got all wrapped up in our own burdens. But Lord, I pray now that your Holy Spirit will move.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can do what
Yes.
we cannot do, Lord. And may you be glorified during this time.
Yeah.
In Jesus' name.